Hi, and welcome to The Wellness of Being with Brad Poirier. I'm your host, Brad Poirier. Today we have an exciting show for you. My first guest, Judy, who's the author of the Life Purpose Playbook, is going to share with you her incredible story. So we're going to dive right into it. So I want to say welcome, Judy. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You're such a light and such an inspiration. But first, before we go into your incredible playbook, I want to talk a little bit about your story. So take us back to kind of a little bit about the history and how it all came about.
For sure. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on the show. I'm grateful to be here and share my story and to be a part of your vision. We immigrated from the Azores, Portugal, when I was just a baby. So we had an amazing time, although I was very shy and had some serious social anxiety up until the age of 18. And it was around 18 where I discovered Tony Robbins, some of his work.
Yes.
And my life completely changed at that point. And he became a really big part of my life. I've gone through this incredible personal development journey. And there's been many challenges and yet some beautiful outcomes that have come from that. And one of them is mainly, actually one thing I did want to share that was a very big challenge in my life just a few years ago really was after I was married, my husband and I decided we were going to start a family.
Oh, awesome.
And we started trying, and unfortunately we had a miscarriage, and then we had a failed IVF. And I went through this period, this really difficult time, where I was just so attached to that outcome that I really needed that to be happy. And I was introduced to gratitude, daily gratitude, and everything changed for me at that point. And that's when I guess we'll talk a little bit about the book and how I've incorporated gratitude into a daily practice for everyone.
So with this book that we're going to come to shortly, where did you find, I guess, the inspiration or the passion, or what kind of went off into your mind that said, this book has to be out of my mind and actually in print, and it needs to be a reality?
Yes. Well, when I was 18 and I was introduced to Tony Robbins 2 decades ago, I was also at the same time introduced to time management through this company that I was working with, The Body Shop. And at the same time, I became absolutely obsessed with goal setting and planning.
Yes.
But I found that I could never find the perfect planner that really was focused on all of life. It was so focused on business. And so I actually created my own planner at that time, around 18, 20 years old. And I've been using my own planner, my system, every single day for the past 2 decades. And I attribute a lot of my success, especially my financial success and my business success, to the compound effect of this system, which is basically going through your goals once a week.
So with this about direction, because I like to kind of ask people sometimes too, did you choose the direction or did that direction choose you?
It's interesting. I started to use this system back then that I was introduced to, this time management system, but I found it just very linear, black and white, masculine, not a lot of fun or color to it. And I just started to I guess my creativity came out at that point, and I started to add some color and become a bit more creative. And it has just been such an incredible level of fulfillment for me over the years, when I find that sometimes we can get depressed or overwhelmed. Sometimes we have really big goals and we get overwhelmed with the next steps. But I found that if you have a system like this, you can bounce back into, especially in the challenge that I had. I had sort of lost the system for a little bit, came back into it, and included gratitude, and I was able to very quickly get back on track with my purpose, and which is all about serving others.
Of course, yeah, because I find one thing is maybe a lot of people, I guess as we age and life happens and things like that, we tend to lose our inner child, because I noticed with your book, it's also a coloring book, and I think it's after a certain age you don't color anymore. You don't use your brain. You don't allow, you know what I mean, to use both the left side and the right side, which obviously one is logical and one is creative. So when you don't have that creativity, you don't have that play, because I think through imagination is where a lot of the ideas and maybe your purpose develops by doing all this kind of stuff. So we're going to do a breakdown, and you're just going to hold up Judy's book here right now. So it's a 6-month planner. It's a goal-setting workbook and coloring book. So the Life Purpose Playbook, the ultimate guide to goal setting and daily planning. So Judy here developed this. So just before we kind of have you open it up and show our guests, our audience here, what it's all about, kind of take us through the book verbally a little bit first, how it came, how you broke it down, things like that.
Yes, perfect. So I found that one thing that's was helpful for me and is helpful for anyone who's using the book is first to get very clear on what your purpose is. Some people know what it is, others don't. So getting clear on it and then creating some really incredible clear goals and a clear vision of what you want your life to look like from all areas of your life. So the first part of the book has quite a few exercises to get clear on your purpose, to get clear on your top 5 values, and understanding why it's important to understand those when you're prioritizing your life, to create a vision statement, or what I call a life intention. What is the purpose of your life in 1 or 2 statements, and then to get very, very clear on your goals so that you can start to live by them. Yeah,
so one question may be tough to answer, but how would you define purpose?
So purpose is doing something that's already within you, something that you absolutely love to do, that you can't stop talking about it. It's what Dan Sullivan has called your unique ability. Something that you just do so well, that comes naturally to you. You're so excited and passionate when you're doing it. We all already have a purpose. Some of us just don't realize, because sometimes those things are so close to us that it takes someone else to realize or to look at us and say, you're so great at that, to make us realize what it is we should be doing full time, because we love to do that.
Yeah, and I can tell you're just radiating, you're buzzing, your vibrations way up here. And you can tell when you're passionate, because when you're passionate about something, you're like, and you literally feel, I'm already tingling, but you know what I mean, everything's tingling. So I can't wait to dive into your book. So if you want to kind of open it up and just kind of take us through and show us maybe some of the exercises, even that first page. I know you're going to go ahead, but look at this. So talk about how you decided on this design, and like really, why did you choose that? Out of so many, why did you pick this one?
Well, you know what, I wanted to start with something that you color, sacred geometry. The whole book has sacred geometry, mainly, as you mentioned, the right side of the brain. When you're doing goal setting and you're working on your life, it's really important to make sure that you're in the right side of your brain, because the left side keeps you so logical and so small. Who am I to, have that goal? But second, you add color, do something creative when you're goal setting. So this is really a commitment page. So you color this, you add your personality to this, and then you sign, and you basically commit to following the system for 6 months.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And then I wanted to actually show this exercise. This is fantastic. This is my purpose discovery formula. So as you can see, each page has on the side the name of the exercise. This one here is called my purpose discovery formula. And what you do is, it's very, very simple. Every exercise is guided so that you don't get confused on how to go through. So here is how you discover your purpose. You write down in this circle here everything that you love to do. Then here, everything that you're great at doing that comes naturally to you. Then you take the ones that are similar and you transfer them here, which become your gifts and your passions. And then you come up with some possibilities on how to serve the world with those gifts and passions. And there's some examples here. And then number 5, step 5, is what in fact is a possibility for your purpose.
Yeah, because I think with those, a lot of people, once they actually write down some stuff, a lot of things they never thought maybe were gifts or they love to do. Like, yes, I'm good at this. I think that also helps with kind of boosting their confidence and also their value as a person, because we're always bombarded all the time by judgment, by this, by that, and you think, oh, well, they're so much better, they dress better, they look better, when you actually write it down and say, yes, I'm really good at this, yes, I do love this, yes, I'm not gonna be afraid to. I think probably the biggest thing is, when you're doing the book, is to be as real and as raw and as, with yourself, because basically you're the only one that sees this book. Correct, and stuff like that, that's gonna take you on this journey over the 6 months. And I think that's really what it is how to define it. So, which is great with the step 3, is finding your actual gifts and your passions, because we can already see yours because you're buzzing like crazy, which is awesome. And I think that's what a lot of people on the show want too, is that, I found my purpose. Yes, I can just embrace, myself and things like that. I'm excited to continue and see what else you kind of have. Have in there. So
your values, important to clarify your values, as I mentioned. So there's an exercise how to go through that. This is a life intention matrix. So it's basically an exercise to create a vision statement for your life. But this one here is my favorite. This is your vision board. So this is the dream builder, or your vision board. So you actually get to go on your computer. It takes 20 minutes to go on your computer and type in everything that you love, that you want to add to your life. And you get to see this every single day. So every time I'm on a phone call or I'm in Toronto, so I take a streetcar lot, always open it up and I'm looking at it and I'm just feeling it and getting into the visualization of the vision board.
And you have it there. And with the Dream Builder, can you use any type of picture, the body you want, the house you want,
everything.
If you want the vacation, if you want to eat healthy, if you want to, I guess whatever you're kind of, going to be aligned with, because I see with yourself, you have books, you have relaxation, you have yoga, you have things. So obviously those are the things important to you.
Yes.
Because the dream board doesn't always have to be where you're at right now, but it's something that you want to manifest.
Exactly.
I would imagine, sort of thing. And they say you have the beach with family, so then also too you kind of see some things that are important to you and stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's I love this because again, everything visual. We're human beings. Everything's visual in terms of visualizing in our head or seeing. It's so important when you want to manifest or bring something new into your life to actually see it first.
Yeah. And I like this because it's big enough that you can see it. If you're a student, you can put it in with your workbooks.
Right.
If you're, a female, you can put it into your bag, and same. If you're a guy, you can throw it into your briefcase or your gym bag or something, so you have it constantly, with you and stuff like that. Because I think it's probably important for all genders, all people, things like that. They'll get some type of benefit out of it. And I think this is one of the strong beginning points. Because how can you get to a destination if you don't know where you're going or what you're looking for?
Exactly. Yeah, it's so important to know first where you want to be. Otherwise, you move around aimlessly. This is the final exercise I'd love to share, which is called the Circle of Life Expander. So these are all areas of your life, from health, personal development, contribution, fun, life purpose, and you get to rate yourself in color from 0 to 10 in terms of how fulfilled you are right now versus where you want to be in the next 6 months, because it is a 6-month book. So where you expand that color into 6 months, and then you write an intention on the outside, what you'd like to do over the next 6 months to get yourself to that.
Oh, perfect. So what I'll do is, before you move on, I'll actually even get for our viewers to kind of name each space and kind of what it means, because a lot of people see it but they don't know what it means.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So family. Family is, of course, your family, your primary family. That if you have children or a mother, father, anyone like that.
Could this also include extended family?
Yes. Yes, extended
so depending
family
on your
as well.
situation and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Financial is in terms of money. How satisfied are you right now in terms of where you're at?
Okay. So this is not where you want to be. This is all related to where you're at now.
Exactly.
Okay.
The color is the yellow I've used to expand where you want to be.
Okay. Yeah.
So then spirituality. So again, spirituality or religion. Where are you at right now in terms of how satisfied you are and where you want to be?
Okay. Yeah.
Primary relationship. This would be a spouse, or if you don't have a spouse or a partner, it could be your self-love, yourself, your relationship with yourself. Health. Which is, of course, yourself, how you feel in terms of yourself, both physically, emotionally, mentally.
So would health also be related to exercise or anything like that?
Exactly. Personal development, which is how are you developing yourself personally every single day. Learning, classes. Contribution, are you volunteering? Is there anything you'd like to contribute to? Any causes in the world that you'd like to be a part of? Whether contributing financially or personally through your time. Fun, how much fun are you having in your life, and how much more would you like to have? Life purpose, have you found your purpose? That could be sort of career / life purpose. So work.
So could that be found based on some of the previous exercises? And then you could utilize it there? Okay.
Yes. And then the final one is I've called create space, which is really how do you create space in your life? We know that when we have too much of things, either things around us or things in our head, that it can create clutter. And it can keep us from having new energy and new possibilities into our life. So whether it's physical things or
just mental stuff or mental chatter or just got a lot of stuff going on to find that calm.
Right. For me, it's mostly the physical. It's so important. I had a huge breakthrough when I did a massive declutter and purge in my life of people as well. Sometimes it's people.
And you need to. I think there's some negative people that we have that we just hang out, even family members. You know what I mean? There can be some negative people in your life that constantly drain you. They're like an emotional vampire. And you're like, this person's so energetic, why do I always feel drained after I see them? Or why do I always feel, obviously if you're having that feeling, something needs to change. You know what I mean? Sometimes it is. It's not always, I think, fun to remove people, but I think sometimes you need to, just for your own well-being and stuff like that. And sometimes the relationship doesn't always end, but I think it just transmutes or it forms into something different.
Exactly.
You know, like that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so then the book actually turns, there's a planner, so there's the monthly calendars. As you can see, I use mine every day.
Yeah. So how would, if I have your book, so I do have your book.
Yes.
And so when I'm using the planner, how does the planner work, and what do I write into it, and like that sort of thing?
Right, so there are daily pages. So here's an example of a daily page. So the daily page, every day looks the same. You can see every day looks the same, but when you get to Sunday, you see that Sunday has 2 pages. There's a weekly check-in, and the weekly check-in will take you to those exercises that we just talked about at the front of the book. So now you're reviewing your vision statement, you're reviewing your life, you're reviewing your goals. There was a section in there where you write goals in all areas of your life. So you're reviewing them all, and then you get to, first and foremost, look at what's important to you first, because we get so caught up in everyone else's to-do list all day long. So what's important for you first, and then we also get a chance to schedule in the next 7 days, the next week, with some priorities from your goals first. So the compound effect of looking at your goals once a week is so important, and it's created such incredible amazingness, really goodness in my life. And it can for anyone.
Yeah, because I'm so excited that it creates focus for people. It creates, because a lot of people I think are probably out there, they're lost, they're wandering. I don't have a purpose, I don't have any talents, I don't have a wonderful story.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But I think going through that 6-week program, and you could probably do it even after you're done 6-month planner, take your first 6 weeks, but then even go to up to the 6 months, you could probably after that 6 months do it again.
Absolutely.
Because I think you'll be in a different place 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later. Exactly. You know what I mean? And it's just incredible. So we just go to this here and just kind of talk about just a little bit about the coloring and kind of what this kind of symbol means. Yes. And then we're going to wrap, and it's been amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So, well, this is a mandala, which is part of sacred geometry. Sacred geometry comes from, it's basically, geometry is in everything. It's in anything that has energy. Yes. So whether it's our DNA, us, so we unconsciously actually recognize these symbols. Yes. And when we can set intentions every day while we're coloring these, it is so incredibly powerful. We start to remember who we really are, which are, powerful beings who can really create anything that we like. So that's why I include sacred geometry. Also, it's very therapeutic. Very therapeutic and very meditative. Some people think you need to meditate, you need to close your eyes and just do this. Sometimes you can just color. Other times you're walking. So it's just another form of relaxing.
Yeah. Oh, that's been so amazing, Judy. I'm so excited to dive into the Life Purpose book, and I'm so glad that you came today to share your life's work and your passion and stuff like that. So we'll be right back after the break. What's in your gut? What's bugging you? Our next guest will tell you how. We'll see you after the break. Hi, and welcome back to The Wellness of Being. I'm your host, Brad Poirier. We're back as promised after the break with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is going to talk about, something that we all have, like bugs, and are they good or are they bad? So welcome, Elizabeth, to the show.
Thank you, Brad. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been a naturopathic doctor, Brad, since 2005, and I'm also an acupuncturist. And one area that I'm specifically gaining more and more experience and training in is this idea of gut health, because it's so critical to our overall health. And in fact, I'm doing some free seminars and educational pieces regarding this as well now.
Wow, that's amazing. So what does dysbiosis mean?
Well, first, most importantly, is how it affects our lives. And I've seen it create decreased productivity, which is a huge concern for most people nowadays. It also can cause social embarrassment, and it can also lead to chronic illness and disease. But the textbook definition is an imbalance or a disharmony of the bugs that are supposed to be in our large and small intestines, so these bacteria, fungal, candidal strains, and even parasites. And it also means some bugs that are coming in that weren't supposed to be be there in the first place, including parasites. So that is the textbook definition, and I've seen it affect negatively in our health, anything from head to toe in terms of how we can feel from that.
So why should we care about our gut, environment?
Well, the majority of the immune system's there. In fact, it's the major player for where our immune system resides in the large intestine and the small intestine. And that means that if the area is out of harmony, we can have either a flare-up of our immune system, meaning we're having allergic reactions now to foods or to environment, or it can decrease the immune system, so suddenly we're coming down with more infections than we're accustomed to, flu, cold, for example. It can also lead to inflammation. That's another big thing the immune system can do when it's in disharmony because the gut is out of balance. And that can lead to pain and all kinds of reactions depending on your weak spots.
Wow. So what gave you a strong interest in dysbiosis?
Well, I learned the hard way, Brad, as to just how far-reaching gut health really goes. My daughter, when she was 2, it was 3 years ago now, she had a stretch of 3 seizures over a few weeks. And, 5 days of investigation, nothing showed. And she was said to be on drugs, or told to be on drugs, for 2 years. And any medical doctor will tell you those side effects can be tough at times. So I was desperate, and I went into those foundations of health, checked out her bowel environment, and we found a fungal infection, and in fact a fungus that interestingly was tagged to potentially cause seizures. So thankfully with my training I was able to go in, treat it effectively, recheck, and thankfully it was gone. And we safely, with medical advice, we weaned her off that drug, and they told us she'd go on to have more seizures, and you know what? She hasn't had one since.
That's
and it's
amazing.
been 3 years. So isn't it just incredible just
Yes.
how far the gut health can go? It was inspiring to me. So that really made me realize I can't miss that environment, that gut environment, for any of my clients, because we just don't always realize how far-reaching it can go.
Yeah, so how do we find basically where our gut balance stands?
Well, I prefer doing 2 steps. One is doing a stool test. Now, a lot of people get a little bit, hesitant when I talk about that, but it's really a straightforward process. In fact, I brought a couple items that normally would come in a kit. So your naturopath would give you a kit. There'd be 3 bags typically. I always recommend doing a 3-day check.
Okay.
There's even gloves in there, so it's a clean process. Tells you exactly how high to fill up, these tubes. And there's even a catch container to make sure that, we're not catching the wrong things in there. And there's instructions. There's a mailing kit. I mean, really, it's straightforward. They even tell you exactly what to say to FedEx, when you call. So everything is outlined so clearly, so specifically, and that is a 3-day check under the microscope of your stool, as well as what we call a culture and sensitivity.
Yes.
So growing what's there, and then really importantly is seeing how to kill what's there. The second step, and sorry, I'm going on a little bit with this one because it's a huge one.
Yeah, no, it's great.
But that's the stool test, and the second part is live cell analysis. Now, I like that step because it can tell us if things have gone further into the blood system. So, Brad, this is one example of what I can see under a microscope when I'm doing a live cell analysis. This was a picture from a client, and this segment here showed that there was fungus in their blood system. So now I know I need to treat longer and stronger, and it's not just in the stool. And this is another catch point to recheck, so we know the person's feeling better.
Oh, of course, of course. But I heard that, maybe a tool set, a tool sample isn't always accurate.
Yeah, a stool test kit is not always accurate if we don't do it the right way. So I certainly recommend doing a 3-day check. 3 days ensures we're not going to miss under the microscope a parasite that can dodge even 1 or 2 days. It's going to make sure that if there was a fungus that, for example, died before it made it to that grow phase, make sure we can see it there too. And keep in mind also that there are parasites such as pinworms. They are so tricky to find. On a stool test they don't show. Even the tape test, that we're told to do as doctors, it's so difficult to find when there's. So people really need to realize they also need a doctor who understands what the symptoms are and what to do on a practical basis, because it's not always just about a stool test or a live cell analysis.
Okay. I heard that, basically that probiotics are really great, but shouldn't everybody be on a probiotic?
Well, it's certainly trendy, isn't it? And
Yes.
I certainly see that at some point in everyone's lives, it makes sense to do a probiotic. I'm a very specific person, though, and I've seen already 2 cases where these individuals had perfect good bug profile or probiotic profile, I guess we could call it. And we're able to see that, thankfully, on these stool tests. And they still had, one had a fungal infection, the other had a bacterial infection. So it's not a perfect shield, but certainly important. And in fact, we're doing, a segment about that, aren't we? So it's obviously a big deal. But it's not something that everyone should take necessarily today. We should be assessed to make sure we actually need it.
Of course. What about doing an over-the-counter parasite treatment?
Well, if you really felt that you had a bacteria or a parasite infection, the trouble with doing over-the-counter, it looks cost-effective, and I understand that can be why some people start there. But the problem is you're actually wasting time and money usually, because as I go in to check the stool, oftentimes patients who've said, I've already done XYZ protocol via my own over-the-counter, I still see infection there. So it's the strength of the treatment, it's the fact that these bugs are getting so resistant now to different treatments. So I personally feel that it's going to be a safer method just to get in there, see what's there, and then treat with what we know will kill it, because otherwise we're wasting time, and these things can grow and hurt us longer term.
So if you have these bugs in your gut, what are kind of some of the symptoms that you may have, something internally? Yeah.
So again, it can go from head to toe. So you can see individuals with a thick white coat on the tongue as one step. They could have unusual carbohydrate or sugar cravings. I've seen individuals act grumpy and irritable, foggy-headed, certainly energy drain, the more classic digestive concerns, pain, bloating, sometimes even normal stool, to be honest, which can be really deceiving. And that can be also someone that still has dysbiosis. I had a case of a 37-year-old woman. She had swelling of her feet. And she felt that immediately after, well, not immediately, a week after the treatment was started for the parasites that she had 2 showing, that she was noticing the feet were as though they had shrunk back to size. Her abs that were sore for 7 years were suddenly feeling good again. And even for her, she had this unusual craving in the evening for sweets. So it can affect people in a very broad way.
So if they're craving sugar, would that be related to candida?
At times, I mean, my most recent experience, this woman actually had 2 parasite infections. She didn't have any fungal infections, but certainly you're right, that is something we need to consider. Any dysbiosis, really, we need to think about when someone is talking about cravings that don't line up with the way their lifestyle is. This 37-year-old had an impeccable, lifestyle for diet, so it didn't match up that she was having those cravings. But you're certainly right, any kind of dysbiosis could do that kind of craving for someone.
So as far as a bowel movement, what's a healthy bowel movement look like? And number 2, how many times a day should you have a movement?
Well, 2 to 3 times a day is certainly the gold standard. I don't at this point really break it down as far as, does it float or does it sink? I find that patients get turned off sometimes by that. And because I've got these tools to go in and check a little more closely, I tend to go for those more functional ways that are a little more specific. Certainly we don't want to see any coloring other than a normal brown. If we see green in there, there could be concern. If we see a clay color, certainly that's an emergency concern. If we see mucus, so literally like a slime coating, that's inflammation. So we want to make sure that there's nothing there happening in terms of infection or even eating a food that's bothering our system.
Well, of course. I mean, obviously, I think the only way your stool could be green, say you're eating a lot of greens, obviously it's going to come through the same way, correct?
Sometimes. I mean, you should be able to eat greens and not have that much coloration. There's certain things like corn, certainly. But if we're seeing green, like you say, a little out of the ordinary, though, or too often every time we're eating greens, we have to think about maldigestion in general. So are they eating an intolerant food? Is their stomach acid not in alignment? Several things there that we also need to consider above and beyond, like you say, just eating a ton of greens.
So with that, to keep your body clean, what type of things would you recommend, probably as far as any kind of liquids or foods that people can use to kind of cleanse Maybe, so cleanser system maybe.
Yeah, well, on the topic specifically that we're on, that dysbiosis topic, I do have a clinical pearl, and you know, I really do need to disclaim that I'm not obviously the doctor of those that are watching, but if they can take this pearl to their doctor to see if it lines up for them. So grapefruit seed extract. That is the one standing soldier, I call it, where after 11 years of doing stool testing, I see it still being so potent at killing, really it seems, all the fungus and bacteria that are overgrown, and that's a huge statement. And so many of the other natural products are showing as not working at all, or they're not working as strongly. So it's a wonderful product. I actually custom make that for clients because I'm so in love with that product. And you want some gut healing support in there, because we know whenever there's an imbalance of the gut, we need to concern ourselves with the environment being unhealthy in general.
And what would gut flora be?
So gut flora is the idea that there are bugs in our intestines that are supposed to be there, and they're helpful when they're in a certain range. And then when they get out of a certain range, now we're into that dysbiosis category, which is disharmony now. So there's several strains. We know the most popular ones, the lactobacillus, the bifidobacterium, but there's actually several in there, including enterococcus, clostridium, I mean, whole bunch of funny terms.
Almost, makes your head spin.
Whole bunch of funny terms, but you can basically find that out on a stool test so that you just know exactly what probiotic to take. So we're not guessing.
Oh, awesome. Elizabeth, I noticed here you have the limited energy guide. So it's the proven secrets to kickstart and sustain your energy now. So can you tell me a little bit about your book?
Sure. So this book is something that I'm paying it forward with right now. It is a compilation of my clinical pearls over the past 11 years of practice and over 15 plus years of training.
Wow.
There's nothing in there that you're going to just Google or find in a textbook. This is really from the heart of case study experience. And it's empowering individuals and their family doctors, their naturopaths. There's lab tests. There are case studies, basically practicalities on how do I know why I'm not feeling as energized as I should, and how do I take the next step to address that and to investigate that. So trying to help individuals to have no rock unturned so that folks aren't spending money on products that are just Band-Aids. And we want people to really heal, and we want people to really resolve at the root cause what's going on.
Because I think that's a big problem, is energy for people, because a lot of people, even though they sleep 8 hours at night, they still wake up, they're still not rested, you know, things like that. I think energy is the one big thing that a lot of people have. I think they contribute a lot to, well, maybe I'm just getting older, maybe I'm working harder, maybe because I work 2 and 3 jobs, maybe because I have more stress, maybe because, I mean, there's any number of things that people... So when you wrote this book, why did you think there was such a need to get it out there?
Well, with energy drain, I mean, that's sort of a simple term to encompass a lot of what can go on wrong with our health. And you're right, it's a big problem for individuals, you know, needing to be productive nowadays. I mean, problem or not, depends on your perspective, but we all want to be more productive. We all need to accomplish a little more heavily than maybe we did perhaps 40 years ago. So energy, to me, it's how we're productive. It's how we do what we're supposed to do while we're here. So it just encompasses so much with health. So I'm able to use that term to now implant all the different health items that could come into play. So we're really having one term branching off into many areas of health concern. So
with the limited energy guide, if somebody was going through it, how kind of is it broken down for people? Like how many chapters? Kind of what are your topics? Like mainly that you have in there?
Yeah, well, the Limitless Energy Guide has, certainly it has a lab section, and that lab section is basically saying, if you have these concerns with the way you feel, consider doing these lab tests, right? So they can take that to a naturopath or to their family doctor to ensure that that's being investigated. It also has a section on an area that I hold so dear to my heart, which is eating foods that are an intolerance to us or foods that are toxic to our own body chemistry based on the Carroll method. So I actually break down, based on clinical experience, what are the main foods that individuals are finding to be toxins in their system, meaning they try to break it down and they are getting energy drain from it, or they're getting other systemic problems from it. And I just finished peer-reviewed research too, which is illustrated in here, showing 94.25% clinically significant positive outcomes when you're doing that kind of assessment. And the tips are in here all about that as well.
Because I think intolerance for a lot of people, I guess there's so many. Could you break down maybe some of the most common intolerances that people may have?
Sure, yeah. So we have to first understand, I believe, what the term intolerance is. To be honest, it's been a little bit adulterated now.
Okay.
So in the classic naturopathic circles, the real term intolerance means genetically we can say what we lifelong can't break down because we metabolically just can't handle that. Creates toxins or essentially poisons.
Okay, yes.
That's based on the Carroll method. That's what we've researched recently and see so much clarity on and specificity on. Nowadays, though, intolerances are also being taught as being an immune reaction, so an IgG reaction.
Okay,
That's not what I'm talking about, because I find that it's not specific enough, and I don't see that really dramatic positive change like I am when I do a Carroll method approach. So the main one, and it's funny, as I was driving in here to do this segment with you today, I saw the Potato Festival.
Oh, yes,
and,
yeah.
you know, that is about 60% of the population has a core lifelong breakdown issue when it comes to potatoes.
Okay.
And it's more than potatoes, because potatoes, of course, are used as a derivative for so much.
Oh, yes.
And that's
Yeah.
outlined in the book, too.
Would that be any kind of,
Sure.
would that also include any other starches and things like that? A pasta or something like that, like a white bread?
Well, interesting,
you know?
because with potato intolerance, because of the way they manufacture things nowadays, food nowadays, it does actually branch out into a lot of the grains if they're not whole grain, if they're processed, and also into a lot of dairy products, etc. So it's all about the processing, and that's why I love decoding that for individuals such as in my book, because it can get really confusing as to, well, what does this really mean when you say I can't ideally have potato?
So what's one quick comment you make to our audience just before we wrap up, you know, that they should really know out of this segment? What's their big takeaway?
Well, I'd like them to take away some free gifts.
Awesome.
And if they can, if they'd like an e-copy of the Limitless Energy Guide, they can email me. I believe you're going to be posting that up for them. And I'll also send them a link for free micro training and a master pass to my next live event, which is valued at $197.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to thank you so much for coming, Elizabeth. We're going to have Elizabeth back after the break. We're going to talk more about bugs, blood, acidity, everything you wanted to know. So we'll see you right after the break. And we're back. I'm Brad Poirier, the host of The Wellness of Being. So in our first segment with Elizabeth, we learned about dysbiosis. Now we're going to learn about endobiosis. So Elizabeth's going to be here. She's going to explain the differences. And I want to say welcome back, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us again. So what got you started in all this? Like, so the endobiosis, what got you started into it?
Well, really, the results-based natural medicine in general has been the center of my life for about 20 years now. It's a little bit of a personal story. I think it's really critical, just so you know where I came from. I was in a car accident. I was riding my bike. This was in high school. And I was in such pain that I remember I couldn't find a position that was comfortable. And my wonderful parents, they took me immediately to holistic doctors. And I was literally within 24 hours at a comfort level again. And then the healing process came around quite quickly, you know, considering what I had gone through. And I remember saying to myself, it's like a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, I want to do that. You know, I want to be able to take someone from that level of distress and disease to a place of permanent healing without chemicals, without surgery. So that was where it was born for me, the idea of going through it and going straight ahead with naturopathic training. So to me, that was why that segment of my life progressed in that way.
Yeah, so you have your own clinic. You're the founder and doctor of your own visit clinic, and you still offer free educational events as well. Wow, that's pretty ambitious.
Well, I certainly don't have a lot of extra time. As you know, I've seen over 1,000 patients to date. I've practiced for 11 years, but I really love over-delivering. I believe that comes from the fact that my parents literally came to Canada with a suitcase in hand. I'm a first-generation Canadian, and to me, that really instilled, or they really instilled in me, the value of money. And I'll have patients, Brad, in the last 11 years put supplements on my desk literally worth over $500, you know, just to by the end of the visit me having to tell them that, listen, 3/4 if not more of these don't even work for your body chemistry. So it was really upsetting to me, and I wanted to be able to take individuals to a place where they weren't dependent on these supplements that weren't giving them the foundations of health to properly heal and to properly come to that root cause place of healing. So to me, that was a really critical piece to make sure that people could have that level of education to reach more than just the one-on-one, to reach more individuals individuals at once. And that way, even if they're not a patient of mine, you know, they're empowered with their own doctors to move ahead and to do what's needed so no rock is unturned.
My audience wants to know, where are they going wrong?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, certainly there is a hyper focus on just the bugs in the intestines, and we just did a segment on that, so we know that that's really critical. But there's more to it. You know, what we need to be aware of, there's bugs in our blood system, and these bugs are called endobionts. And specifically, there's a mucor and there's an aspergillus. I mean, the names don't really matter, but what it is there's these bugs that are in harmony with us. In fact, you know, I have a picture here that might help to illustrate that.
Sure.
This is a live cell analysis picture. So when I'm looking under the microscope at blood, these are some of the things we see. So these little specks that you see in this picture around the red blood cells, those are the endobionts that are in our body, if you like it or not, in our blood system.
Okay.
That's their healthy state. They're not hurting us in this state. This person likely has a normal acid-base balance in their body. Their body is likely not over-acidic in the blood system. And then what happens, Brad, is that we can get a scenario where these bugs that I'm illustrating today, the importance of them, they can start to mutate into what we see here, this chubby rod that's inside the red blood cell.
Okay, yes.
This is when the system has likely become too acidic, and I'm quite sure for this individual we assess that to be true. It's hard to remember. This case was quite a few years back, but usually that's the case. And what's happened here is the bug has now turned parasitic. So when your body is not in the right balance, it's too acidic, these guys can mutate and now start to invade and attack the red blood cell. This guy here has eaten out the heme and the iron carrying capacity and the oxygen carrying capacity of the cell.
Yes.
And we want oxygen circulation.
Well, of course we do, yes.
That's what keeps us energized and keeps us from chronic illness. And then Brad, if I may, just illustrating again the importance of why we need to remember about these bugs. When the bugs keep going and they are, again, feeding off this acidic environment, they can start to create stickiness in the red blood cells. So what a difference this is from that first picture we saw. Our red blood cells are supposed to be round. They're supposed to be able to carry the oxygen around the body. This is very tough for circulation here. Yes. Very tough for the white blood cells to get in there and to do their job cleaning up. And this is a setup where someone may need to go for really severe blood work, and also make sure they don't have a disease at play, because the oxygen's really impaired here.
So what happens with these microbes in our body?
Well, what German scientists found is that, as we showed on the first slide there, is that they're in this neutral state, this harmonic state with us. We're not bothering them, they're not bothering us. But then when our system becomes too acidic, so there's things in our environment, in our lifestyle that can create higher acidity, including diet, over-consuming sugar, having excessive stress, which don't we all have?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, chemicals coming into our body, overdoing meat, overdoing grains. I mean, so many scenarios that can create an acidic environment. And the bugs will mutate then in many scenarios into that chubby rod form is one of the states that can happen. And they can start to, again, destroy that red blood cell or create that stickiness. And both of those are a setup for potential long-term disease and illness and energy drain for sure.
So you're saying my body can turn on me? I mean, it may end up being more acidic, or just because I don't have that alkaline balance in my body.
Yeah, essentially, Brad, if we don't, the big deal is to do things in our lifestyle, which we'll talk about, that are going to allow our body to be in a more alkalinized state. I mean, there are areas of the body that are supposed to have some acidity, but we need to have a more alkalinizing, promoting lifestyle. Or you're right, these bugs that are there, not hurting a thing, not hurting us at all, can start to change into a form that can absolutely wreak havoc in our health. And German doctors strongly believe that it could lead us down a path to even serious concerns like cancer.
Wow. So how do we find out where we stand specifically?
I prefer going right in and seeing what's gone wrong. So the live cell analysis to me is a really direct way to go in and see, okay, clinically what has happened. So we can see, as you saw in these slides that I held up, if the blood cells are sticky, if these bugs have turned into high valence forms that are now attacking the body, attacking the blood cells. You can even see if there's some malnourishment. So the person's, again, not eating enough rich, nutritious food. The red blood cells can get what we call into ghost cells, where their walls are becoming clear.
Yes.
So there's many things we can see. And live cell analysis, just to really demystify what that is a bit, what would happen is we would do, usually after the sample's taken, because we don't want to destroy the blood, but we do an alcohol wipe at a point. We'd also take this clear slide, there'd be a cover slip for it also, and with a quick auto lancet, so literally, this is the most painless way you can do it, easy way to sneak up on kids too, and you can't hurt yourself after.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a great tool. I've used that successfully for a long time, for 11 years now.
Yeah.
And what I would do is I'd put this slide that now has a live drop of blood on it with a cover. I'd put that under my high-tech microscope, and I'd be able to see what's happening there. And in fact, I would project it on a screen for patients. That way they can really see also and be empowered as to what's happening in the blood system.
So what if I found unhealthy signs underneath the microscope? How could I make my body more alkaline?
Well, my piece that I'm going to share is not sounding ultra revolutionary, but it's really critical. So eating more fruits and vegetables. And we all say that we know about that, and I don't need to hear that, I already know. But really, 7+ servings of fruit and veggie a day, there's not many of us that are doing that.
No, of course not. Just lives are busy, people are on the go all the time and stuff like that. I noticed that you have some items on the table here.
Right.
Maybe we can go over a few of those. But can some fruits and vegetables also make you more acidic?
Well, there are, so there's that concept that if we have tropical fruits, some of them can create an acidic environment in the stomach area and in the lining. And you're right, tomatoes. We have foods certainly that are in that category. But from my case studies and clinical work, I always go to what is the most aggressive, impactful way without getting people too overloaded with too much information.
Yes.
So for me, I focus on what can we add in, because the second we start just taking away, individuals sometimes find that difficult. If someone's overeating tomatoes or overeating citric fruits like pineapple, I'd certainly let them know that needs to get simmered down a bit.
Yes.
But I'm going to focus more on the fruits and vegetables, including some of my favorites I brought in today, so they can be empowered with eating more.
Yes.
Like lemon, for example, is citrus, but very alkalinizing also. Do you mind if I show you some of my favorites?
Yeah,
sure.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, these are my favorites because they're really missed. Dulce flakes, Brad, I don't know if you've ever used those before.
I don't believe so, no.
No. Dulce flakes are one of my family's favorites. This is a sea vegetable.
Okay.
You can see by that rich color that it's really high in minerals that are very alkalinizing. That's the big thing with fruits and vegetables. They have some really strong alkalinizing minerals in them, moving our body away from all those harmful scenarios we just talked about.
So with the dulce flakes, how would you use them? Do you sprinkle them on salad? Do you just take them? Do you mix them with water? I've never used them, so maybe our audience would like to know too, do you take them, can you pop them in a smoothie?
Right, you could, depending on what your taste buds like. We like to put about a 1/4 cup of this in our broth that we simmer for 24 hours. We also sprinkle this on the kids' pasta, on soups, on really anything that can take a bit of a salty taste to it. So it's a nice way to do an alternative for salt while you're getting all that potent mineral activity out of that. There's other ways you can get in sea vegetables also. So one of my favorites is the raw nori wraps. Again, it's a seaweed. Now this one in particular is really thick. So the great thing about that is you can really wrap your food like a wrap. Right? You're dodging grains, which we don't need to go grain-free, Brad, but really we overdo it mostly, don't we?
I think it's a perfect alternative too, that it's kind of nicer, it's easier, you're not getting, and especially to maybe somebody who's gluten intolerant, that's another option for them that's probably a lot healthier too.
And I think anytime we can replace out grains that are just too simple to take in, it's a way to, again, just create a balance, a harmony, instead of constantly going to the same food. We like to put beans, rice, avocado, a little strip of healthier mayo, with no sugar added in there. The kids, it's hit or miss. It has a little more of a fishy taste, the raw one. But I'm going to show you, Brad, if I may. There's one that is roasted. I'm not going to advertise the brand, so I'll just flip it here. But there are roasted wraps. Now these ones you can see much more crisp look to them, a little tougher to wrap your food.
Of course, this I've tried before, the roasted one.
And they're very palatable, aren't they?
They are, much more so than, I guess too, it depends. If you're a seafood lover, then you have no problem
with the raw. Kids love these though. You're not going to get too many no's out of kids when you're trying to feed them that.
And I think they're fun. It's almost like a giant piece of what's that, fruit roll-up?
Sure, yeah.
Or dried fruit
absolutely.
or something like that, but just amazing. And as far as like content of it, you know, I imagine it has like vitamin C, vitamin A, like things like that in it as well.
Well, the mineral content in there we certainly know is very alkalinizing.
Yes.
Some of the more potent minerals that are alkalinizing would be your potassium, your magnesium, your calcium. I'm not saying that particularly has the highest concentration of that, but those are the minerals we look for when we're having lots of fruit and veg. You can also, Brad, you know, if someone's finding it a little tough to add in enough fruit and veg just from eating alone, there are certain products, I mean, I'm not here to advertise my product, but I do certainly produce one for my patients. There are many products out there, Brad, that are just ultra concentrate in fruit and veg. Sea vegetables I also produce into mine, and that's also ultra alkalinizing. It's a way to get extra when we're finding that day in, day out, we're not getting 7+ servings. It really means twice at every meal we're having a fruit or a veg, and not everyone can do that. So this is a way to get some jam-packed
Of course. So with
minerals.
this powder, how would you use this powder? Does it mix with water or fruit juice, or do you apply it on other foods? You sprinkle it? You just take it directly?
Sure. Well, the one that I've made here, again, it's intolerance-free tested, but there's a little bit of safe stevia in there. So what that means is kids and adults alike can put a little bit of that, a teaspoon is all you need of this one, into water. Kids love it in those silicone popsicle molds. You mix that with even water or just a smoothie.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And then they're still getting all the vitamins, minerals, nutrients, everything they kind of need as well. Because I know people going all the time, they can get stressed out. So let's talk, Elizabeth, a little bit of stress for a minute.
Sure.
What does stress do to my acidity in my body?
Yeah, well, stress does a lot. I mean, certainly it's been tagged to be able to increase the acidity and cause all of this progression we've talked about. But stress does more. I mean, it also destroys, we understand, some brain cells. It can create increased blood pressure, or certainly at least aggravate it. It can aggravate inflammation and pain.
Wow.
And it's a huge problem. But the nice thing is you can actually go in and assess to see where the nervous system is out of balance, and then specifically how to treat it. So we don't have to run in those stress reaction circles anymore.
So what can I do to get a grip on stress, or even for our audience out there, you know, if you're stressed out, Elizabeth, kind of let them know what you can kind of do to get a hold of, you know, just to get a grip or get a handle on stress.
Well, certainly it's a journey for most of us, isn't it? I mean, when are we ever at a place where we're completely zen, unless we live on a mountain in the Himalayas? But for me, a big thing that I've learned through many mentors, but specifically my most recent, her name is Eden, and I'm happy to share her resource with anyone that requires more assistance. She reminded me that we need to become neutral to our environment. So instead of chasing around and trying to control every aspect of what's going on around us to have that more peaceful feeling, it's really being in a more neutral state, so that no matter what's going on, we are more centered and we're not flaring up into this reactivity. You know, my secret is I have prayer most days, and also meditation. There are other tools out there, but for me, that's my secret.
And that's what works. So I have a couple more questions. So number one, what about digestion?
That's an amazing topic, and it's really at the core of a lot of concerns with health. Digestion, you know, if we're eating foods that just generally aren't healthy for us, or more specifically, we're again targeting in on what foods are an intolerance to us based on our genetic makeup. They can create toxins, and these toxins can upset that immune that's most heavily there in the intestines, and then we can have problems including the allergy reactions, inflammation reactions. We can get sick more frequently. And certainly it's been tagged that the poisons we make when we're eating a food that our genetics just don't match up for, that could mean more acidity in our blood system.
Yeah, you shared so much, Elizabeth. How can you sum it up for our audience, just a takeaway to make themselves less acidic?
Sure. Well, we need to recall and remember that an alkalinizing lifestyle means more fruit and veggies. When we are more acidic, we're moving towards inflammation. Inflammation, as we know it, seems to be the underlying of most illness, if not all illness and disease, and it's paired up with weight gain. We also saw that the blood cells can become sticky, meaning oxygen is not flowing around the body, and then we can move into illness and disease that feeds off of low oxygen environments. Thirdly is we saw that when the body is too acidic, we can get those bugs that are there if you like it or not, the endobionts, that fancy word, they can flip over into a harmful parasite state if we don't keep tabs on a more alkalinizing lifestyle. So to me, those are the three big take-homes.
Yeah, wow, that's truly amazing. That I just want to say thank you so much for coming. We have your book here, which is the Limited Energy Guide, and people can contact your website and go on there and get some great information. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for all the great information you shared today. I want to thank the audience for watching. I hope you enjoyed these segments of the show. We'll be back next time, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.